Okay, today I'm going to just go over a couple of things that can be helpful when you're trying to debug PWA applications. And we'll be using the Alpha Notes application that I wrote a couple of years ago. This is an application that uses Firebase for a note-taking application. I cover this in a previous video I did a couple of years ago. I'll make sure to leave a link to that. So that you can check out those videos. They explain PWAs in detail. We're not going to go into that level of detail here today, but we're going to go through a number of gotchas, things that can be tricky when you're actually building these things. So we're going to select our Alpha Notes component. We're going to click on the PWA icon up here. And I've already filled out a bunch of the stuff here, but yeah, my static cache version name, dynamic cache version. Let's see, let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's say we're going to have 20 entries in our dynamic cache. You can adjust that to be anything you want, pretty much up, I think, to 255. It just eats up space, and it's a matter of how much caching you really need. And you got to play with that. That's what you got to do. We've got our offline page defined, so if there's no connection, this offline page would indicate, hey, we don't have a connection, and you're gonna have to try back later or something like that. If there's a particular file that it's trying to access that's not in the cache, that's what it's gonna call that. This particular program doesn't make any AJAX URL, so we don't need to worry about that. And in this case, I have to make sure using Firebase Cloud Firestore is checked because these entries would be entered into the dynamic cache and they could kind of mess with updated data. So make sure you check that if you're using Firebase. And after the file set's created, I just want to open the folder. We're going to run live test on that. So let's just go ahead and do that. It's now generating the PWA files. And we can close that out and we'll notice a PWA folder right here. Just double click on that. Double click on Alpha Notes, and now we see all of the files that were just generated, including our service worker and our manifest. You can go ahead and open those up if you're interested and take a look at the structure there, but everything should be good to go at this point. Right now, I'm going to hit live test, and we're going to do a live test. In this case, I'm going to clear the live test folder because remember, a PWA has to be served from a unique domain name. So this local host will be our domain name here. This allows us to do local testing. A PWA cannot be installed from an HTTP protocol. It has to use HTTPS, but localhost is allowed. So let's take a look at that when we'll clear the test folder and publish it, and then off we go. So let's go ahead and do that. My default browser here is going to be Chrome, and sure enough, it brings it right on up. Now I'm going to hit function F12, and we're going to bring up our debugging tools. And notice I've got the application tab highlighted here, and I've got my service worker highlighted here, and I can see in this case I already had installed this app once before, and even though I rebuilt it and everything, it had the same URL, and this service worker was running. So these run on a completely different thread than the browser itself. Okay, so you can see right here that it's waiting to activate. I don't think I made any changes. Let's update on reload and reload the page. And there it goes. And now we see it's been activated. Here, I'm going to uncheck that now. And so even though we hadn't made any changes, we now have a new service worker up and running. So if we had made changes to the app, we'd see them in this particular location. If we were to, let's look at the cache storage. Now, this cache storage is different than what you might think of as the browser cache. This is using the cache API, and this is what's used to manage all the service worker, really. So these are the files that are going to be cached here. Let's go take a look and see what we've got. So in our PWA cache, we see all the files that are in the static cache. So this is the files that Alpha has indicated that these are files you want to cache. And we're going to notice something interesting when we go over to the dynamic cache. So let's do that. We'll click over here. And oh, hold it, there's the index file is there as well. But oh, that's because a parameter's been added in here. So this is in the dynamic cache. And you can see there's a number in the dynamic cache, again, because I've probably done this a few times. And so that cache has got kind of stale stuff in it, right? So when you publish, you got to make sure that that we're not adding unique parameters in like this into our production applications. It will still work, but this is going to be limited to the number of entries that we had indicated that we were going to allow in the dynamic cache. And it'll just keep overwriting these as this dynamic cache fills up. We can also, if we're interested in it, we can right click on it and delete it. So now we just deleted the dynamic cache completely, and we could go ahead and reload it. If we reload the app, it's going to go ahead and recreate the dynamic cache. And again, you will see, because the file we're looking at has got this parameter on it right here, that's different than what's in the static cache. So you got to be careful with this stuff, and you have to understand it. You have to understand exactly what's going on, or you could get kind of thrown, like, oh, gee, I made a change and it didn't work, and things like that. So this is something that's going to be really helpful for you when you're trying to debug PWA apps. If you want to, you can also go ahead and let's go to the service worker here. And let's say we wanted to test the offline capability here. We can just check this. If you just check the offline capability, this is now offline. Okay. And I can make a change if I wanted to. Change this again. And I could go ahead and say, okay. Now that didn't get updated to Firestore, and again, you can go into Firestore and check it out, and you'll see that that didn't happen. But then when we go ahead and turn it back on, then it'll update. The other thing you can do here is, let's see. You can take a look at like IndexedDB and see what's going on there. Notice that Firebase uses IndexedDB, so you can inspect what's in here if you're interested. Session storage, local storage, cookies, everything's here. So, that's sort of a quick run through of what you might see in the development tools here in Chrome that can help you out with your PWA app. Oh, one other thing I wanted to show you was this. Let's go ahead and close that. Let's go ahead and live test again, but this time let's say, oh, I want to put that on my Android device. So in this case, I'll say remote test, and I'll say okay. And I'm going to display a QR code, and there it is. And let's bring up my Android device here. And now we're going to go ahead and we're going to install it. So I'm going to call it my camera, and we're going to do our thing here and install it. So this is our PWA app now. You can request a desktop site from over here. Okay. We're not going to do that. We'll just leave that the way it is now. Now, if you look closely, you're going to see something here. So this is not served from localhost. It has REM, Intel, NUC, name of my computer, port 81, and then live test. You won't be able to install a service worker here. Okay, and this can really throw you because this is not served from HTTPS or localhost. So if we were to let's bring up the Chrome debugging tools, and let's say we want to inspect our devices. So we want to take a look at what's going on with this particular application. We should see our device come up, and here it comes, and here's our application. So now let me make this a little bit smaller so everything kind of fits. And what we're going to see is when we take a look at service workers, we don't have one. And the reason is because it didn't come from HTTPS or it didn't come from localhost. And we can look at our cache storage and say, there's nothing there. So you might think, oh, geez, this is all messed up. No, it's not. This is just playing by the rules. So if you want to install on the device, make sure you're going to install from HTTPS. And so that'll solve that problem for you. But these tools can be really, really helpful. And I hope you learned a few things from that. Next, I'd like to show you some of the work that I'm working on. These are new projects, and this is a work in progress here. We're adding the ability to support push notifications within web apps. So this will be within any kind of web app or PWA. And what you're looking at here now this is my test code that I'm writing. This is all written in React. I do this a lot. It makes it really easy for me to find example code and so on. In this case, we're using Firebase. And so it was much easier to dig through their React code, which ultimately is JavaScript. And then this gets orchestrated into the builder and then ultimately becomes part of the product. So this is just test code here that you're looking at, but you'll get a good sense, I think, of what you can do with push notifications in web apps and within PWA apps. So I've got a Firebase project set up with Firebase messaging. And this application over here is running on localhost 3000. And I've got the application tab open here. Let me make this a little bit different. And we'll be able to see there's a service worker there that's active. And that's the thing that's really driving the messaging. It's, again, very similar in what the same service worker that we use in PWA apps. It's running on a separate thread. And in fact, when I write this for PWAs, all of it will go in the same service worker. The user has to opt in to receive notifications. They won't just randomly happen. So the first thing you have to do is click on click here to receive notifications. Now, when you do that, if we look in the console here, you'll see it's actually right here. This has been running, so this is all stuff that's been notification permission was granted. Now, if it hadn't been granted, it would have asked me, do you want to grant permission? Do you want to allow notifications from this app? But it's already been done here. So, but you can see the token. So this is unique to this browser right here. And right now, what I've done with that, again, for test purposes, what I've done is if I go into my application tab and I look at my local storage, you'll see that I've got a token right here. Now, this token is the token that was passed back to me from Firebase messaging. And I can copy that token. If I come down in here and copy it, I can go ahead and paste that in. So if I wanted to, this is in Firebase here. So if I want to send out a test notification message, I can do that here. And I could say, yep, this is the token. I've already copied it in. And I could just say test. And here you'll see now we're in the app. And in this case, it's displaying a message over the app. And I can just say, yeah, okay. Now, that's actually not recommended. So, but just to test it and to show you what that is like, that's the reason that I did that. Now, if I'm on another site, or even this tab wasn't open at all, the service worker, again, would still be running. And if we go ahead and send a test message here, again, to the same token, we'll see the message come up here. And then I can do things like I can actually make it go somewhere else. In this case, I'll say go to pricing. So it's going to bring up a alpha software pricing page. You can kind of make it go anywhere. You can do quite a bit with this. Here, we'll send another message over with the Porsche page active. And I'll show you. So if I just click on, like, notice I went to another page. So, again, a lot you can do here. Leave it again. We'll send another test message here. and I won't do anything. So it just shows me the message, and I can control what exactly it displays up here. This image I could change or whatever, and eventually it just goes away. So it's very native-like in on an iOS or an Android device as well. It acts just like the traditional messaging that you see, and this is something new. iOS added it fairly recently. I believe it was in February that messaging was finally added to PWAs for an Apple device. So there's a lot more to do here to get this to the point where it's ready to be rolled into the product in a builder. But it's coming along nicely. One of the other things you can do is right from within the developer tools here in Chrome is you can look at the push messaging here, and you can say, oh, I want to record that. And when we do it, again, we'll go over and send a test message here. So yeah, if you click on here, you can see everything, the payload that came through in the message and so on. So that can be helpful when you're trying to troubleshoot these things. Now what we have to do from here is that token has to be stored server side. And these would be people that, you know, wanted to receive notifications. And you can also subscribe to topics. So people that want to subscribe to, you know, you could have any given topic. That token is stored in it, again, in a database server side where you can push notifications out to specific topics. So, and this is all handled, again, through Firebase messaging. So you might want to start getting used to that and, you know, sort of exploring Firebase messaging a little bit. You can use it for both native iOS, native Android, and of course now for web and PWA apps. So that's something new coming along, and stay tuned for something else. Okay, next what I'd like to do is show you some of the work that I've been doing on a new project. And this is a project to replace Cordova with React Native. So the idea is that we'd be using React Native and React Native tooling and no Cordova at all to still get the native application on the devices using React Native. We're driving it through JavaScript talking to native, all the native controls, kind of similar in a way to the way things are done in Cordova, so that the app can be built in alpha. And this particular app you're going to see this is working preview. So this is the component with this app. And this is what I'm going to show you running in React Native. And if we take a look at the design, like for example, on the take picture button here, you can look at what we're sending. And in this case, we're creating an object where the feature is get the photo. Here are some options. Kind of looks a little like the stuff you'd pass to a Cordova plugin. And then we send the data to the React Native app and send the request over. That in turn is going to call into native components and work as you would expect. So let me just move alpha out of the way here. And now you can see my iPhone, and I'm running Expo Go. So Expo Go is a really nice development tool for use with React Native, and it allows like instantaneous updates and things like that. It's really, really nice. So I think for the first rev of any work that we do here, it'll probably be running in Expo Go, but or running under Expo. So it's pulling in an update. Okay, so now here you can see my application, and I've got a server running here that so that we can see everything that's going on, or a console running here in Expo. So let's go ahead and take a picture. So yeah, this will be a picture of my office here. So let's save there, and let's go ahead and use the photo. There you'll see it. Notice the experience is very much like you would see like with Cordova. Next, we'll go in and get a picture. So here we'll grab a picture from my gallery here on my iPhone, choose it, and the same kind of thing. Next, we'll do a recording of audio. So this is an audio recording here. We're just testing 1, 2, and see how that goes. I'm going to stop and play it. It's going to upload that file to S3, getting a signed URL. Anyway, it got a signed URL from an alpha server, uploaded it to S3, and then played it back. So that's a good test of a lot of things going on there. In this next one, I'll set a session variable, calling back to an alpha server, and I'll get a session variable. Again, doing the same thing, and we'll do an AJAX callback back to an alpha server. So this simple test demonstrates an awful lot of what needs to happen in order to build native applications, React native applications that are derived from Alpha Anywhere components. This is going to be a big project. This is going to take some time to do. There's an awful lot of work that needs to be done to make it happen. So this is a proof of concept application right here. And the code, in fact, here, this is the index HTML file driving this thing from the web side, so in the web view, and this is all stuff this is the stuff that comes right out of Alpha. So this is very similar to just publishing your files directly out of Alpha, and then from there, I've done a lot to bring in numerous components into our React project here, and then developed a technique to communicate from the JavaScript side to the native side, and from the native side back to the JavaScript side. Again, it's very similar in many ways to Cordova. We're interested in doing this because the React community is, and the React Native community is so vibrant, and there's so many new things going on in that space. It appears to me that it's a really good way to go. So this is something that's coming. Can't really tell you exactly when, because it's not a main project for me. I'm still heavily involved with the Cordova side of things, and will be, I'm sure, for quite some time. But this is something that I am working on, and I think something that has a tremendous possibilities. So I wanted everybody to see that. Thanks.